Hello, and welcome to Chapter 4 of Biology, where we're going to look and explore about carbon. We are organic molecules because we're made of carbon, and it is very essential to life. As you can see, that carbon is usually connected with other elements in like a covalent bond. It could be a single covalent bond or a double covalent bond, and they make different properties. They come and form different molecules and that are essential to life. So organic chemistry is actually the study of carbon. There's a lot of other elements that come along with carbon, but organic chemistry is the study of carbon itself. There are several different elements that you need to consider that are very important to the body. We'll look at them individually as we look at the macromolecules in the next chapter. So how does carbon look? Carbon is allowed to have 4 bonds, as you can see. Carbon is an element that is in the 4th column, and therefore it has 4 valence electrons, and it needs 4 more to be a full octet. And the shape in which it forms is called a tetrahedron. So methane, with this 4 hydrogens, each extending from one of the locations in which a bond can be formed, forms what we call a tetrahedron. In organic chemistry, the words meth, M-E-T, H means 1 carbon. Eth means 2 carbons, and then we'll look at some others, but first we'll do meth and eth, and the words A-N-E, the ending phrase A-N-E actually says that it is a single bond. So you notice that these are single bonds. E-N-E means there's a double bond. There's a double bond between these 2 carbons here. Notice that the structure is very different between the single bond and the double bond in which things are made. This is very important in organic chemistry. So the valence electrons, which we covered earlier, is super important in creating bonds for covalent bonds, and that's the sharing of a pair of electrons. Hydrogen has 1 valence electron, oxygen has 2 valence electrons, nitrogen has 3 valence electrons, and carbon has 4. So what does this mean? Hydrogen with 1 proton can have 1 electron, and it's the first energy shell which can have 2, and when it only has 1 electron, that means that it only needs 1 more to fill that shell. Oxygen is 8, and it has 8 protons. Its atomic number is 8 and has 8 protons, and therefore it has, in a neutral atom, has 8 electrons. The first shell fills 2, the second shell fills the rest. So 8 minus 2 would be 6. You see 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you need 2 more to make it a full octet, and then be happy. Nitrogen is in the 5th column, and it is 7. It has an atomic number of 7. Therefore, it has 7 electrons. The first shell has 2, and then the second shell fills the 5, and that's the valence electrons. And when you're missing 1, 2, 3, you could see the little white open space telling you that it needs 3 more to be a full octet. Carbon is in the 4th column, and it can have, its atomic number is 6, and it needs 4 more to be a full octet. 2 electrons of the 6 is in the first shell, and 4 in the second shell. Notice it's spread out evenly because electrons don't like each other. There are other chemical reasons for that in this electron shell. So As I said, you can either be sharing one bond, which would create a single bond, and you can share it equally, which is nonpolar, or you can share it not equally, which is polar. You can also share two, and here is CO2, that means carbon with two oxygen. Each oxygen needs two more, and this oxygen needs two more to be a full octet, but carbon needs four. So it gets two from this oxygen and two from this oxygen. And then as they're sharing double bonds here and a double bond here, carbon thinks he has a full octet, oxygen thinks he has a full octet, and oxygen thinks he's a full octet. Notice the structure, it's linear with this double bond. CO2 is very small. It can actually go across the plasma membrane. And we're going to talk about that next in the next chapter. Here's another molecule with some side groups that we'll be talking about. But these are single bonds, and this is a double bond. These are not shared equally, so this is a polar molecule. Here is a steroid. 4 fused rings. Notice the difference between estradiol and testosterone. Really, it's a double bonded O and a CH3 here. This OH turns to a double bonded O and a CH3, and it's a big difference in its effect in biological systems. So carbons are known for its length, and organic chemists usually count how many carbons are in the strand. Usually you determine which one's the longest, that has the longest string of carbons, and then you decide how complex it is, and we'll talk about complexity here. So eth has 2 carbons. Prop, we said meth has 1 carbon. Eth has 2 carbons. Prop, P-R-O-P, has 3 carbons. A and E means they're both all single bonds here. Notice that with the double bond, we have bute. Bute is 4 carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4. And E means there's a double bond somewhere. And then you have a numbering of it saying that it's in the first position or in the second position, depending on where that double bond is. Butane with no numbers means it's all single bonds. Branching. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, but the longest chain that's connected together is 3 carbons. So that's why it's called propane. And in the middle, 1, 2, or 1, 2, the number 2 position is where that methyl group is, and that's why it's called 2-methyl propane. Sometimes carbons will connect with each other in a chemical reaction, usually in water, and they form a ring. And then in the ring, it's called a cyclohexane because there's 6, in this case, it's 6 carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's all together. They're all single bonds, so it's cyclohexane. If there are double bonds in this ring, then it's called a benzene. Benzene is sort of a common name for this. Here's a great video that you should go and watch. It is a good resource. Hydrocarbons in general are usually nonpolar. They're known as fats because they're long chains of carbon and hydrogens. We're going to look at those a little bit closer. So it's a carbon and hydrogen. One type of hydrocarbon is called a glycerol, a triglyceride. It has a glycerol and 3 fatty acids, and these fatty acids are all carbon hydrogens, either single bonds or double bonds, and so you either have them saturated or unsaturated, and so that is what our fat is made of. So these carbons can come together in different forms, and then we form what we call isomers. We have structural isomers, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, cis-trans isomers, and enantiomers. So in this image in figure 4.7, structural isomers means that you have the same number of carbons or number of molecules, you have the same formula for this compound and this compound. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons. And then you count your hydrogens, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hydrogens. So C6H12. This is also C6H12, but notice that the arrangement is different, the location of the different carbons. So that's why it's called structural. Their structures are different and they're isomers because they have the same molecular formula. A cis-trans talks about the double bond. Is the side groups, the important side groups other than hydrogen, are on the same side, that would be a cis isomer. If it's on opposite sides, that would be a trans isomer. Enantiomers look like they are reflections of each other. Notice your hands. If you put your hands together in like a mirror, they look like the same. But if you took them out and then like cross them in front, like if you took this and crossed it over this, they are not the same, and that is what an enantiomer is. And so molecules come out in a left and right turn sort of complex. So meaning complexity goes to the left or complexity goes to the right. Here's a great video to dig into that deeper. Enantiomers are super important in the efficacy of drugs. If you have the wrong one, it won't work. And so pharmaceutical companies have to really dig into that, and biotech companies. Okay, next is functional groups. Functional groups are super important. They are the side groups in which we are going to dig into. These are the side groups that we're going to look at, and I'm going to go to the next slide so that you can see it better. So as you can see, we have the hydroxyl, which is an OH. If you can't see this image, definitely go into your book, figure 4.9. An OH is a hydroxyl group. It's usually considered an alcohol or base. And in organic chemistry, when you have an OH, you consider it an alcohol. And notice that alcohol has an OL at the end. And so the name of that molecule has an OL at the end. So ethanol means eth means it has 2 carbons. Ane means there's no double bonds. All means it has a hydroxyl group. Carbonyl, actually I'm going to skip down to amine, which is the NH group. Those are usually basic, and you have the NH group. An amino group or amine is NH. Then sulfhydryl, which has an SH, called a thiol. Cysteine is an amino acid that has a cysteine, an SH, that's a sulfhydryl group. A phosphate group is POOOO. So this is the structure in which it is. So a phosphate group, it charges it to the right. It's a glycerol phosphol, meaning this is the glycerol side, and phosphate here. Methyl, we mentioned it earlier, is the carbon with 3 hydrogens. That CH3 is a methyl group right here. And then next we have carboxylic acid. Notice it's carbon with double bonded OOH. It's the OOH that is makes it the acid, carboxylic acid. That OH loses its hydrogen, and acid always loses a hydrogen, and that's why it's called a carboxylic acid. And then last is a carbonyl. Looks very similar, but it's not. It's carbon, double bonded O, hydrogen. And if you see this at the end, it's called an aldehyde. If you see it, here is an at the end. If it's in the middle, it's called a ketone. And these are the 2 names for that. So you should know these very well. And here's a nice video about that. I am going to pause here and we will pick this up into the next video of chapter 4 to finish out. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.